and everyone's got an uncle on farm, or memories of being a young kid and visiting someone's farm, and just how neat to bring that nostalgia back, but also to support our own economy.
What got you into the role at Palliser Ridge, where you're living on a farm, you're the expansion manager? Where were you beforehand, and what's the day-to-day for you now?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's probably two reasons I ended up with this role. One is that 12 years ago, my husband took the role here, and farmers don't move to the city. So when I made the call to hang out with Mr. Portas, that was kind of where this was always going to go. So I did a wee bit of commuting before we started our family, and I was doing work predominantly in the retail sector as in store management roles, which I loved. Very social and very in the middle of town, so quite different to what I do now. But we were brought into the fold at Palliser Ridge with Jim and Marilyn with an equity partnership around 7 years ago, and then part of that was to have a look at diversifying the business. We've got this amazing asset here, and we were looking at ways to kind of incorporate some other skills that we had around the table, which is where I got to come in, which was quite exciting. And then we looked at doing, could we do some tourism? Could we do something with our own wool and meat and honey and all those kinds of things? So the day-to-day now is catching all the ideas that Kurt and the rest of the guys throw at me and deciding which ones to run with.
It sounds like an awesome and varied role. So 7 years ago, let's take me back to that point, because so you and Kurt have decided, right, we're going to do this. We're going to help Jim and Marilyn out, but we're also going to help ourselves out because we're going to get some equity of this farm to be ours. And I'm sure you had lots of conversations around, okay, if we're going to do this, how do we get the most out of it for everyone? What were some of the ideas that you threw around back then of what you thought the farm was missing, where you thought you could get some traction with the market, and how did you kind of work out which direction to go in?
Yeah, I think we were pretty fortunate at the time to the people who make up our board of directors now were very informal. 7 years ago, it was Jim and Marilyn and Kurt and myself, and I think we had our youngest was there, our oldest, was there with us. He was a baby at the time, and we all caught up for Christmas, and Jim and Mel's children were back as well, who are all incredibly supportive of what we do, but not looking for a position to kind of come and run the farm. So we had all this neat skills and expertise in different areas at the table, and we were like, right, what can we do? How can we do all of these different things? And what kind of skills have we got here, and what products have we got here that might be able to fill some kind of void? And so where that kind of stemmed from afterwards, I guess, was doing a few business plans. So for a while there, I didn't want to hear the word business plan, but it was fantastic because it's important to really think these things through. We've got the farm that Kurt's been running now for 12 years, and anything else that we decide to bring onto the business, we need to make sure that that's not going to take away from what's already happening, that we're supporting those things and adding a bit of value rather than shifting course and trying something completely different. So we knew we had a really neat story with the whole brand New Zealand story, and we knew we were all really passionate about what we were doing down here in regards to the environment and the animals, and that we were producing some quality products. So we thought, right, we don't want to see our wool head off on a truck and then not know where it's going anymore. We want it back here. So that's where it kind of began.
A lot of farms have the same kind of succession planning, either problem to address or opportunity to solve. And I like the way you talked about it there, that you were looking at, okay, what is all the strengths that everyone has, and how do we put that to work? And it sounds like by having Kurt already there for 12 years, there was a huge amount of trust and knowledge and expertise. When you started going on the route of this diversification, 4 or 5 years ago, what were the first steps for some of those, wool, honey, tourism products?
I think the most logical ones for us, because my background was always in retail and kind of I was probably on the other side of things, dealing with people who had their own products and then looking at selling them and always having that consumer front of mind. I think naturally having tangible products that we could have in front of us and sell made a lot of sense, because I guess that's where some of the skills I'd had from a previous life came in. But then it was also about kind of figuring out, we've got those, and then, you know, the views that we have here, we're right on that southern point of the North Island. You just can't get away from how amazing they are, and we probably guilty of taking them for granted when we drive home and, oh, there's the Kaikouras, that's nice, but it is amazing. And I think that was a really common theme for us, is there's so many cool things about what we're doing out here every day. We have to share those with people, and I think that's where the tourism part decided to come in.
And so this is the the farm stay that you can stay in a, I think it's a 1 bedroom, is it? That you've got the Kaikoura lookout right from,
that's right,
you know, where you're staying.
Yes, absolutely. So that's right near the summit of our farm. So you drive in, you're kind of off grid and completely away from everyone. You know, you might see the odd motorbike go past, but it's generally pretty private. And the theme we kind of have around that is we're so close to Wellington. We're about an hour and a half from the CBD. So we get a lot of people coming out here who want to turn their cell phone off. I know that I need to do that, maybe a little bit more than I'm doing currently, but it's a neat place to be able to switch off, you know, literally and metaphorically, and just hang out with someone, or a lot of people actually come on their own just to kind of reconnect with where they're at, and kind of take that, you know, get that well-being under control too, which I think is incredibly important now. So it's pretty neat. The feedback we get from up there is pretty magic.
What is some of the feedback that you've received?
Well, we've had, I think we're on our 5th engagement now, so there might be a little bit of pressure for any single guys taking their girlfriends up there. There might be a little bit of, is that what's about to happen here? So it's obviously a neat place for that. It's very romantic. But I think, you know, there's a lot of bird life around, and also around the Wairarapa, and particularly around Martinborough. We've got the Dark Sky Reserve initiative happening, and really keeping an eye on that light pollution. And out here you can just see the stars for miles, and it's amazing. So we get a lot of astrophotographers coming out, and also just amateur photographers coming and just having a look at it, and it's pretty cool.
It sounds like I want to go there this weekend. You've sold me already, although I may have looked on your website, so I have got an exact visual for what it looks like, and that must be magic, not only in the evenings, but waking up first thing in the mornings. It looks absolutely stunning.
Oh yeah, there's some pretty neat sunsets up there as well. So yeah, it's nice. It's a different, for those people who are kind of used to being in amongst, I know when I lived in the middle of the city, it was, you know, the fire engines and the trucks at 4 a.m. and all sorts of things. So to come out here and just have that serenity and be in amongst nature is pretty special, I think, for a lot of people.
Now, you also mentioned there that your background is in the store and the retail side of it. How did you manage to put that to use with the wool products and the honey products?
That's a good question. It was a little bit different to what I was used to, for sure. But it was, I think, one of the biggest learnings that I took from being on the other side of things was what I wanted from brands and what I wanted from the people who represented those brands, and kind of looking for products that really fit what consumers were asking for, because the market can be a pretty busy, flooded place sometimes. So it was neat for me to be able to put the shoe on the other foot and go, right, you know, when I'm talking to this person, who is their customer and who's my customer, and what is it that they want? And all of that kind of thing led us back to that New Zealand's a pretty proud place. We're all proud of what we do and what we manufacture, and how good to take something that is so connected to so many of us. And everyone's got an uncle on farm, or memories of being a young kid and visiting someone's farm, and just how neat to bring that nostalgia back, but also to support our own economy and our own jobs and our own manufacturing. I think it was just such a cool story to tell, and we talk so much about storytelling, but it is important.
And you're right. I think Kiwis are certainly ready for it. I was speaking to someone on Twitter who said, "Where can I get a wool jersey?" And I sent him a couple and said, "What about, there's this one and this one?" He goes, "No, I don't want merino. I don't want thin. I don't want comfortable. I want a heavy, scratchy, 100% New Zealand wool, homespun that's absolutely going to be bulletproof if I pour oil over it or anything." And I couldn't find one. I went through all our license holders and I just couldn't find it. And I'm probably going to get a whole lot of comments going, well, you didn't look at our products. But just before our interview, I tweeted him a link to your wool jersey, and he replied saying, finally.
Fantastic. It's, you're absolutely right. There's so many cool New Zealand wool products, and you're seeing all this emergence of these New Zealand Facebook pages and New Zealand Made and New Zealand Wool, and it's just how good that everyone's getting into it. And I know exactly what you're talking about. There's I have all the beautiful merino jerseys at home, but man, I've got a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old, and it's not right for them. The blimmin' in paddocks rolling around, and so they have jerseys and vests, and yeah, we like to think these ones are pretty bulletproof, and the colour's good too. We did start off with a natural white coloured wool, and very quickly, once the boys started growing, that colour was not for them. So we've got kind of boy friendly, shouldn't be, and girls like to roll around too. We get a bit messy in the wool shed. So no, it's been fantastic to fill that gap, and like I say, that nostalgia of that, scratchy jersey that you had when you were younger, to actually turn that into something that's really stylish and also that can be knit, from someone that you love. And, knitting's just making a massive comeback, and COVID really influencing a lot of that too.
So can people actually buy the raw, like 2-ply wool from you in order to knit their own jerseys?
Yeah, so we've got 8-ply wool, and we sell it in, I think, 3 different colours now. And so it comes on kind of your industrial cones that are just over 1 kilo, which will do a jersey that would fit yourself or myself. And then we also have little balls of wool too. So yeah, we've got a big knitting fan club. We do like a monthly knitting group here in the wool shed where I make a bunch of cups of tea and everyone sits around and shows what they've been working on. It's a really cool community event, but people come from far and wide to come along. So knitting's just always brought the rural community together. But I think now through lockdown and people looking to make things for their own children, you're just seeing so many more people coming back to some different crafts, and happily wool is in the mix for that.
Hey, just a quick interruption. Thanks for watching a Kiwi original. If you're liking this episode, then hit the notification button, and that means you'll see when every new episode gets released. We've done 40 already. We've got another 50 lined up. Right, now back to the episode. It's definitely a trend, and it's something that speaks to the meaning and purpose you get when you make something yourself, and that imbues into the product. And then if you give it to someone else, you receive the warm fuzzies as well as that person receiving the warm jersey. And I think it's just fascinating when you hear people talk about, oh, New Zealand made, it costs too much, or it's hard to get. But yet, if you go down that route and get the wool and actually make the jersey, even though it might cost you way more in time and effort and learning and frustration than it would to go to a big box store and just buy something off the rack that a machine's done and can do 100,000 of them a month, it doesn't have that meaning and purpose. And if you're giving that to someone that's got a 3-year-old toddler or a 6-year-old, what's the meaning if it's just mass market? It has a purpose to keep you warm. And I think every business should look at what's the purpose and what's the meaning for what you make. And what's fascinating, I think, about what you're doing at Palliser Ridge, which I hadn't really clocked onto before we started speaking, is with the internet enabling e-commerce, you're essentially a direct-to-consumer brand. You're a manufacturer that happens to do tourism, but you can directly sell to Kiwis online from your factory that just happens to be a farm.
Yeah, absolutely. It's it brings that whole, the traceability aspect for us has always been key. And I think you've touched on a couple of, like, both sides of what we do here when it comes to particularly the wool side. We've got a lot of that bespoke kind of yarn and people can go off and knit their own bits and pieces. And then we've also been able to partner up with some kind of like-minded businesses. Like we've got the New Zealand Natural Clothing up in Norsewood and Interweave up in Auckland, who do kind of help us fill that gap. If we've got hand knit items that can, they're fantastic, but they're pretty hard to get a few of, and you can guarantee someone will see it and then it's gone and then someone else is after one. And it does take a lot of time because they're such special products. But being able to partner with them has allowed us to, do a few styles of something, whether it's jerseys or blankets or hats, and then also a range of styles, but still come in with that important information of, we know all of the hands that it's gone through before it gets to you. One thing that we're really hot on doing is having everything start at the farm and then using the right people with the right ethics in the middle to help us create things, because we know that we can't do it all on our own. And then we like to bring it back, get into that packaging, get into that brand storytelling and be that kind of quality ingredient, and then take that product and take it to the market. So that's been pretty cool. It's been neat to be able to do that and to have other people in the middle, but always come back to those values that we have from the farm. And I guess those are really key when we go to have a look at who are we working with next, and how do we go about bringing people into the fold with us. That vision that we have for the farm is so important, and I think lots of people can relate to that. Having like-minded people is always a good thing. If you can understand what's important to you, that's cool. But if the people that you're taking with you can too, that's just game changer.
Absolutely. Are all farmers trying to make their farm better like you are, or are some sticking to, hey, we've got a flock of sheep, we've got thousands of sheep, we've got a couple of thousand cattle, we're going to stick to just doing that, we're a sheep and beef farm?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, and I think it's important to note that no two farms are the same. Farms produce, my wool's different to my neighbour's wool and things like that. I think where everyone is trying to do better is, when it comes to a lot of this environmental work is happening all over the country. Sometimes it doesn't get as much attention as things that perhaps are a little bit more radical or newsworthy, which is unfortunate. But I can hand on heart say that I don't really know any farmers who are not trying to make their business better, and whether that's that they're trying to secure the future of their business through family and making the right decisions, or whether it's environmental ideas that they're trying to get to grips with, or whether it is diversifying their business and not having all their eggs in one basket. So I think everyone does the best with the resources that they've got. Our setup here is quite different in the sense that we're quite a corporate structure. Kurt and I aren't Jim or Marilyn's son or daughter, so that's a little bit different. You see a lot of those traditional farms that have family succession, but you'll also see family succession people diversifying too, because I think everyone brings something different to the table. So I think you will see farms diversify a little bit more, but they've always done that. And I know you and I have spoken about this before. They've always been a hub of feeding their community and being a social point for each other, particularly in the rural sector. And I think it's just such a Kiwi way of living. I think everyone's trying to do their best out here for sure.
It's a very fortunate way of life to be the kaitiaki of a piece of New Zealand, and be able to not just look after it, but enhance it for the rest of us that don't live on farms, and for the generations forward from now. Why you were recently on the Hyundai Country Calendar? Very recently, I think it was on last Sunday.
Yeah.
Why do you think they picked you? There's lots of farmers and lots of farming going on. What was the thing that do you think they wanted to highlight about Palliser Ridge?
I think probably we were quite lucky. Well, in some hard work, hopefully went into it. But last year we were the Greater Wellington winners of the Farm Environment Awards. So for our region, we were the winners, which was pretty cool. And those awards look at not just the environmental work that you're doing, but the work around people. So the people within your business, around the animals, around all sorts of different bits and pieces that you're up to. So I think for us, and obviously business, looked at your finances too. It's nice to do all these things, but you've got to keep this as a business at the end of the day. And we've got to make sure that what we're doing is viable. So I think that was a really neat springboard. I know that a number of the other regional winners we've watched their episodes in the last 12 months. So I think that's pretty cool that farms who are recognised in that way get to be seen by everyone, even if it's a bit nerve-wracking. But and I think our people story is always something that tends to resonate with people. At the end of the day, we're all out here just doing our best and working hard and just being incredibly grateful for the opportunity that we've got, and hopefully that's something that resonated with some of the people who watched it.
Now, who is the guy Gordo, and how has he helped out recently?
Oh man, I need to talk about him because he is amazing. Gordy is my rural delivery postman, and he's like a local celebrity. We all know him, and particularly after lockdown, he's delivering food and medicine and everything to everyone. But this week, particularly after Country Calendar, we've been fortunate enough to have some success through our online store, which has been fantastic. So Gordy's been pulling up in the red van every afternoon and filling it up and looking after us. So yeah, we've got to look after Gordy. He's fantastic. So, and that's just that rural community spirit. He's everyone knows him, and knows all the kids and knows all the goss. So it's perfect.
So he's the one that's got to load up his van with all the products that you've sold online, and then get them to the Kiwis around New Zealand who want to have a bit of the Palliser Ridge experience and a product that you've made for them. What's still available? Have you sold out of things, or is there other products that are going to come back online?
Yeah, we have sold out of, I think today we've sold out of 2 of our blanket styles. And they will be replenished later this year. We've got some production happening right now in Auckland at Interweave, so that's lucky. The new navy yarn was pictured, got a little bit of airtime on Sunday, so that's been very popular, and we're down to our last box of that as well. So yeah, it's been neat. We had a couple of hand knit toys and things like that, and of course they flew out the door, and we have a waiting list now, so poor knitters are gonna be busy, but it's pretty cool. Everyone who's kind of contributed to the products is just so overwhelmed with the success that it's had, and hopefully long may it continue.
Well, it certainly speaks volumes to not only get the award, but to be featured on Country Calendar. It's almost the once you're on Country Calendar, you've kind of made it, whether it's in technology or farming or both. So then you have to be careful not to rest on your laurels, right? Because you've achieved all these things. It's been recognized. You've done the 5 years of diversification. So then what's next? Like, what happens for Lisa and Kurt and Jim and Marilyn for the next 5 years?
Good question. I think we've, particularly on my side of the business, the diversification side, we're still relatively new. It's been going for around 5 years, and some of the things that we do are younger than that. I think now we're moving into a phase of kind of figuring out what it is that we do well and really running with that. I think we're constantly working on succession here as a business, and Kurt, from a farm point of view, is always looking at keeping the people happy, making sure our staff are happy and want to stay here, and he does a lot of work around taking students as well. So that's something that you'll see a lot more of from us, is kind of like apprenticeship shepherds, so with the Growing Future Farmers program. So I think you'll see a lot more of the same. We've still got a few goals up our sleeve and a few things we'd like to do, but yeah, I think just making sure we can keep that work-life balance and enjoy our family and enjoy the jobs we do is just so important. So we'll keep that front of mind for sure.
Well, thank you very much for sharing the Palliser Ridge journey to date and some of the milestones along the way. I think a lot of people will perceive farming quite differently after listening to this or watching this. And good luck on the next part of that journey. And for anyone thinking, hey, this this farm is somewhere that I might want to go and book for accommodation and see this Kaikoura lookout for myself, how do they go about doing that?
Yeah, so we're on all the usual suspects. You can find Palliser Ridge on Facebook and Instagram predominantly. We're a bit quiet on Twitter because we like to keep our low profile sometimes. And then we've also got our website, so just www.palliserridge.co.nz. And you'll find all my details there. Always happy to take a phone call and spin a yarn, so to speak.
Excellent. Well, I'll make sure that link is in the show notes for anyone listening, so they can go directly through and book, or go and purchase some of the wool or honey products that you've got on offer at Palliser Ridge.
Awesome. Thank you.
This has been a Kiwi original brought to you by the New Zealand Made team. Thanks for watching. The New Zealand Made trademark is used by over 1,200 businesses in New Zealand. The New Zealand Made team licenses that trademark. Check if you're eligible at bynz.org.nz. If you feel that someone should see this, share it with them now. Otherwise, subscribe to youtube.com/bynzmade, and we'll see you on the next episode.